My mom left everything to my estranged brother, then I found out why, and I can never forgive her. When my mom passed, I thought the worst part would be losing her. I was wrong. It was the truth she left behind that shattered me more than her death ever could. Let me back up. I'm 35, the youngest of 2 siblings. My brother Mark is 7 years older. We weren't close growing up. He was the golden child, the straight-A student, the athlete, the one with the magnetic smile. I was the quiet one. The bookworm. The one mom never quite understood. When Mark turned 18, he and mom had a massive falling out. Something behind closed doors, she never told me what it was, and he never came back. Not for birthdays. Not for holidays. Not even when Dad died 5 years later. I was the one who stayed. I took care of Mom when her health started declining. I drove her to doctor's appointments, managed her meds, sat with her during chemo, handled the bills, made sure she was fed, safe, warm. I watched her fade for 3 years. And through all of that, Mark never called. Not once. When she passed, I felt peace, because I'd done everything I could for her. I thought I'd earned closure. Then came the will. I sat across from her lawyer, expecting it to be straightforward. She didn't have much, just the house, some savings, and a few family heirlooms. I figured I'd inherit it all, or most of it. But no. She left everything to Mark. I stared at the paper like it had punched me. All of it. The house. The savings. Even my grandmother's ring, the one she promised me since I was 14. Nothing for me except a single envelope with my name on it. I didn't understand. I couldn't understand. I opened the letter, hoping for an explanation. What I got was something else entirely. The letter, a confession that broke everything. Dear Noah. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And I imagine you're hurt, confused, maybe even furious. I wish I could explain this in person, but I didn't have the strength. So here is the truth you never knew. Mark is not just your brother. He's your father's first son, from a relationship he had before me. He was born when your father was 17, and the mother abandoned him shortly after. When your dad and I met, he brought a 2-year-old Mark with him. I didn't know how to be a mother to a child I hadn't birthed. I tried, I really did, but I was young and scared and angry at the life I didn't choose. I treated Mark unfairly. I punished him too harshly. I criticized everything he did. And eventually, when he was old enough to fight back, we had the blowout that pushed him away for good. I spent years resenting him. But when you left for college, I started writing him letters. Hundreds. I never heard back, until 2 years ago. We met in secret. We talked. We cried. I apologized. He forgave me. And I realized then what I'd stolen from him. That's why I left everything to him. You already had my love, Noah. You gave me loyalty I didn't deserve. But Mark needed something to know he still mattered to me. I hope you can understand. I hope one day, you can forgive me. Love always. Mom. I sat there for hours after reading it. My heart didn't know which way to break. She had lied to me my entire life. Mark wasn't just my brother, he was my half-brother. And she had abused him, emotionally, maybe worse, and spent years letting me believe he was the one who abandoned us. I had hated him for decades. I thought he was selfish, cruel, heartless. But now, I didn't even know who I was anymore. The confrontation I never thought I'd have. A week after the funeral, Mark showed up at the house. His house now. I opened the door, silent. He looked older than I remembered, gray around the temples, but those same eyes. Eyes I now knew came from Dad. He handed me a coffee. Just like that. Like we were still brothers. I didn't take it. You knew, I said. He nodded. You let me believe you didn't care. I didn't want to confuse you, he said softly. You were just a kid. And I wasn't your hero. I was the ghost of everything she wanted to forget. I didn't know what to say. My throat was burning. She told me everything before she died, he added. I didn't come back to take anything. I came because I thought maybe, after all this time, we could start over. Start over? How do you start over with someone you thought was a villain, and find out the villain was your own mother? I didn't answer him. I just closed the door. Where I am now. It's been 4 months. I still don't know how to feel. I moved out of the house. I couldn't stand living in it anymore, not because of Mark, but because every wall whispered lies. I see a therapist now. I journal. I try to untangle the decades of love and manipulation I mistook for clarity. Mark texts every few weeks. Simple stuff. A photo of Dad I'd never seen. A memory. A joke. Sometimes I answer. Sometimes I don't. We're not family yet. Maybe we never will be. But the truth is this, I loved my mom. And I never really knew her. And that, more than anything, is what breaks me. My mom left everything to my estranged brother, now I'm finally learning who he really is. Grief is complicated. But grief wrapped in betrayal? That's a mess no one prepares you for. After my mom died, and I found out the truth about Mark, my half-brother, my dad's son from another woman, and the real victim of a childhood shaped by our mother's resentment, I thought the worst part was behind me. It wasn't. Because when someone pulls the rug out from under everything you thought was true, it doesn't just shake your past, it cracks your future. And I had no idea what to do with mine. Mark kept reaching out. After that day at the house, when I slammed the door in his face, I figured that was it. Maybe some people weren't meant to be family. But he didn't give up. Every few weeks, I'd get a text. Never pushy. Never dramatic. Just, there. Found this picture of Dad in '84. Thought you might want it. Saw your article in the paper. You always did like writing. Heard a song that reminded me of that road trip we took in 2001. Remember that? And every time, I'd stare at the message for minutes, sometimes hours, unsure if I should reply. Sometimes I did. Mostly I didn't. But I read every single one. The visit that changed everything. One day in late April, I got a call from an unknown number. I usually let those go to voicemail, but something told me to pick it up. Hi, a voice said. Is this Noah? Yes. This is Linda. I work at Green Pines Care Center. Mark is listed as your emergency contact, but his phone's been off, and we need someone to talk to. My heart dropped. What happened? He's okay, but he collapsed during a visit with one of our patients. Seems like dehydration and stress. He's stable now, but he's been here 3 hours. Would you be able to come? Before I even realized what I was doing, I was grabbing my keys. When I got there, they led me to a small room off the side of the main hallway. Mark was sitting up in a reclining chair, and 4 in his arm, pale but conscious. He looked up as I walked in and gave a weak smile. Didn't think I'd see you here. You passed out, I said. Didn't give me much choice. He laughed. Guess I've still got it, huh? I sat. For the first time in a year, I didn't feel anger. Just concern. What were you doing here? He hesitated. Visiting our dad, he said softly. That stopped me cold. Dad died 5 years ago. He nodded. Yeah. But my biological mom? She's here. Dementia. Late stage. Doesn't know who I am anymore. I didn't even know he still had any connection to his birth mother. I come once a week, he continued. Sit with her. Read old letters. I don't know if it matters. But I just feel like someone should. He looked down at his hands. I never got to forgive her. Not when it would have mattered. So I sit there. And I try. That's when something cracked inside me. This man, this stranger who I used to think was selfish and cold, had spent years quietly trying to be better than the pain he came from. And I was still running from mine. The letters in the attic. After that hospital visit, I decided to meet him for coffee. Just once. It turned into a weekly thing. We didn't talk about heavy stuff at first. Mostly sports, books, shared memories of Dad. Then one day, he asked me something I wasn't ready for. Do you want to go through Mom's stuff together? I hesitated. You mean, the attic? He nodded. She kept everything. Even stuff from when we were kids. Might help us figure out who she really was. I agreed. We picked a Saturday, drove to the old house, and pulled down the attic stairs. It was hot, musty, and full of boxes. We found old report cards, photos, letters, VHS tapes. And then we found a sealed wooden box with our names carved on top. Inside were 2 stacks of letters. One for each of us. They weren't addressed. Just marked with years. Some were written before I was born. Others, just months before she died. We sat there, reading in silence for almost an hour. Some were confessions. Some were apologies. Some were pure rage. Mom's handwriting wavered through the decades, from sharp and defiant to shaky and broken. To Mark, she wrote of guilt, resentment, shame, and finally, love. To me, she wrote about fear. About being a mother who never understood how to give without controlling. She admitted to using me as a second chance. To trying to get motherhood right with me to compensate for what she destroyed with him. Reading those letters was like watching a person unravel in reverse. From hard and cold to soft and human. It didn't justify what she did. But it explained it. Mark's offer. After that day, something shifted between us. We were no longer 2 people orbiting the same trauma. We were brothers. A few weeks later, Mark made me an offer. I want you to have the house, he said. What? I talked to the lawyer. I'm signing it over. I stared at him. Why would you do that? Because it was never about the money. It was about closure. And because you loved her when I couldn't. That matters. I didn't know what to say. Eventually, I nodded. And we hugged, for the first time since we were kids. 1 year later. I live in the house now. I turned Mom's old sewing room into a writing studio. The attic is cleared, except for the box of letters. I haven't touched it since that day. Maybe someday I will. Mark visits often. Sometimes we grill. Sometimes we argue. Sometimes we just sit and listen to music. We're not perfect. We never will be. But we're something. Family. And somehow, in the ruins of a broken legacy, we built something new. Not because of what Mom did. But in spite of it. I finally made peace with my brother, then my aunt accused me of manipulating him for Mom's inheritance. You'd think after finding out your brother is actually your half-brother, raised in pain and lies, and making peace with him over a year of therapy, letters, and uncomfortable truths, that the worst is behind you. You'd be wrong. Because just when life starts to feel like it's settling, when the air clears and the grief dulls, family finds a way to dig their claws in. This time. It was Aunt Carol. My mom's sister. And she came swinging. It started with a knock I didn't expect. It was early on a Sunday. I was halfway through a cup of black coffee, sitting on the porch of the house, our house, the one Mark signed over to me after we spent months rebuilding our relationship, when I heard a knock on the front door. I opened it to find Aunt Carol. Gray suit. Sharp glare. Purse clenched like a weapon. We hadn't seen each other since the funeral. She barely waited for me to say, "Hi," before stepping inside like she owned the place. "So," she said. "It's true." "What is?" "You really took it all." I blinked. "Excuse me." She turned, her voice tight. "The house. The land. The money. You waited until she was dead, and then you and that illegitimate half-brother of yours rewrote history." My mouth dropped open. "You think I took advantage of Mark?" "You were always the quiet one," she said. "The loyal one. And now you're the only one standing on the ruins of your mother's legacy." I was stunned. For the first time in years, I felt that familiar childhood shame, like I'd done something wrong without knowing what. But then I snapped back. "She left everything to Mark," I said, voice firm. "I didn't even know until after the will was read. And he gave the house to me. Because we worked through our mess. Because we forgave her." Aunt Carol snorted. "Forgave? That woman manipulated everyone. Including you. And now, I have a lawyer saying the will might be contestable. You really want to go through that in court?" I stared at her. "Are you threatening to sue me over your sister's will?" Her face twitched. "I'm asking for what's fair. But here's the thing. There was nothing fair about what Mom left behind. It wasn't neat. It wasn't pretty. And trying to divide it like a pizza wouldn't heal a damn thing." Mark's reaction surprised me. After she left, I immediately called Mark. He showed up that evening, no hesitation. "She's bluffing," he said. "She was barely in touch with Mom for the last 10 years. She's just bitter." "But can she contest the will?" "Technically. Anyone can. But she has no legal grounds. No standing. Not unless." He trailed off. "Not unless what?" He sighed. "Not unless someone argues that you coerced me into giving you the house." I laughed, bitter. "Seriously? That I manipulated you into giving me something you inherited, and I didn't even ask for?" "That's what it would take for her to win," he said. "And she knows it. She's banking on us panicking." I looked at him. "Do you regret it? Giving it to me?" Mark shook his head. "No. It was the first decision I made that felt right in years." Then came the letter that changed everything, again. A week later, I received an envelope from Aunt Carol's attorney. She was suing. She claimed that I had unduly influenced my brother during a time of emotional vulnerability, and that our mother would have never intended for the house to fall into my hands. She even submitted evidence, photos of the attic letters, quotes pulled from context, and a copy of a voicemail I left Mark months ago where I said, "I don't want anything from her except peace. You can have it all." The irony? She was using my humility as proof of manipulation. The court case and the final secret. We didn't go to trial. Not yet. There was a pre-hearing where we had to submit affidavits and documentation. Mark gave his deposition first. Said, on record, that he made the decision to sign the house over of his own volition, without pressure. He praised me. Talked about my loyalty. My grief. My silence when I could have fought for the inheritance. Still, Carol pressed on. Then, something unexpected happened. Our mom's old lawyer, Mr. Ellis, contacted us. "I thought you should know," he said, "there's a secondary letter your mother wrote. One she asked to only release if the will was contested." He sent it over. It was short. But brutal. "To whom it may concern. If you're reading this, someone is trying to dig up what I buried. Let them. I abused my stepson. I lied to my family. I favored my biological son to cover my shame. But Noah never once asked me for anything. Not when I was sick. Not when I pushed him away. He just stayed. If you think he manipulated anyone, you didn't know either of my sons at all. I leave them my apologies, and whatever healing they can find in each other. No one else gets a say. Margaret W. I cried when I read that. Mark didn't. He just said, that's the first time she ever called me her son. The lawsuit was dropped. Carol withdrew 2 days later. No apology. No call. Just silence. Mark said it best, she didn't want truth. She wanted control. But truth won. For once. Now. I still live in the house. But it feels different now. The porch is painted. The attic is cleaned. The garden is blooming again. Mark visits every Sunday. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't need to. We framed Mom's final letter. It hangs in the hallway. Not as forgiveness. But as closure. We thought the past was buried, then we found Dad's hidden letter in the garage wall. You'd think after surviving a family implosion, a lawsuit from your aunt, and reconciling with your half-brother, life would grant you a little peace. You'd be wrong. This time, it was the garage. I was helping Mark clear out some old furniture and boxes from the detached garage that had survived 3 owners and countless winters. Most of it was junk, rusted tools, a broken lawnmower, faded Christmas ornaments from a decade ago. But then I noticed the plywood panel near the far wall was loose. It didn't match the rest of the structure. Looks like someone patched it up in a hurry, I said, tapping it. It sounded hollow. Mark shrugged. Could be from when Mom remodeled. She didn't always hire people legally. Curious, I pried it off. Behind the panel was a small metal box, sealed with tape and dusted in spiderwebs. We both froze. You want to open it? I asked. Mark looked nervous. You do it. Inside the box was a single envelope. It was yellowed and stiff with age. On the front, in shaky cursive, it read. For Mark. When he's old enough to know. Mark sat down slowly, his fingers trembling as he opened it. The garage was completely silent except for the crinkling paper. He started reading. And his face turned pale. He handed it to me after a minute. Read it, he said. Out loud. So I did. The letter from our father. Mark. If you're reading this, it means your mother didn't destroy this like she promised she would. That's good. It means at least one truth might survive us. You're not mine. Biologically. You probably know that by now. But I raised you like you were. And I loved you, God, I did. Even when your mother made it hard. Even when I wasn't strong enough to fight her. She hated you because you reminded her of someone else. You never understood why she was colder with you, but I knew. And I didn't protect you like I should have. I'm sorry. I stayed as long as I could. But she gave me an ultimatum. Leave, or she'd destroy all of us in court. I couldn't fight her anymore. If you hate me now, I understand. But I hope, one day, you'll know I tried. And I hope you'll forgive her, even if she didn't deserve it. You were always my son. Dad. Mark didn't cry. He just sat there quietly. After I finished reading, I waited. He stared at the ground for a long time before finally speaking. He stayed for me, Mark said. All this time, I thought he ran away. But he was pushed. I nodded. You okay? Mark smiled weakly. I'm not sure. But it's weirdly good to know. Then he stood up, brushed the dust off his jeans, and said, let's finish the garage. That night, we burned the letter together. Not out of anger. Not out of hate. But as a ritual. Mark said it felt right, that the man who wrote it had finally said what needed to be said. We stood silently as